It's not often that I get to start a whole video game series from the beginning. Often I'll start somewhere in the middle or with the latest release. For example, my first Elder Scrolls game was Oblivion, or my first Witcher game was the third one, Wild Hunt. But you get the idea. This was my first time playing Mass Effect and first time being properly exposed to the Mass Effect universe. However, as many of you probably know, I do have ample experience playing Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, but I've played KOTOR 1 the most, and I kinda consider KOTOR the forebearer of Mass Effect. It was a perpetual reminder for me because the voice actor Raphael Esparge voiced both Karth Onasi from KOTOR and Kaidan Alenko from Mass Effect. So every time Kaidan spoke, I replied by saying, "Okay, whatever you say, Karth." Mass Effect is an RPG developed by BioWare and released in 2007. There's a few things which set Mass Effect apart from just another space RPG. The game was developed with the intent to be the first chapter in a game series, so the world had depth in mind from the start. Also, for the combat sections, instead of taking turns where you pause the game and plan out attacks, like in KOTOR, you're actively running, gunning, and taking cover in third-person mode. I streamed my first playthrough of Mass Effect on Twitch, and I kept finding myself asking the question, what would motivate someone to go back to play Mass Effect 1? There are a couple answers to that question, but I want you to think about it while we go through this review. We'll return back to it at the end, and you can decide if you agree with me or not. You play as Commander Shepard. Shepard's appearance, background, class, and first name are all customizable. I decided to embrace the horror of the character customizer as I attempted to make the squarest looking jawline known to mankind and gave him blonde, spiky boy band hair. The story for Mass Effect is pretty good, so unless you want to be distracted every time you see your character's face, don't go nearly as overboard as I did with the character customizer. Mass Effect starts out with Shepard being sent on a mission to investigate a human colony on Eden Prime to recover an unearthed Prothean beacon. Protheans are an ancient civilization with super developed technology who were just suddenly wiped out from the galaxy for an unknown reason. The mission goes wrong when suddenly a cybernetic race known as the Geth attack the human colony on Eden Prime. To wrap up the first few hours of storytelling in Mass Effect, Shepard and friends go on a galaxy-wide quest to stop Saren, a rogue Turian Spectre. But first you need to prove Saren is a traitor. Then you get to explore/search all over the galaxy for him. By the way, Spectres are Special Tactics and Reconnaissance Force agents given special authority by the Citadel Council. And Turians are probably my favorite alien species in the game. Also, Saren is not Sauron from Lord of the Rings, but if I slip up and say the wrong name, my bad. Oh, and the Citadel Council is the galactic governing body. However, humans don't have representation on the council. ... Yet. And that's a point of contention for some of the humans in Shepard's company. Anyway, Shepard and friends will chase Saren all over the galaxy in the starship called the SSV Normandy. In addition to the main quest to stop Saren, there are a number of side missions, codex entries to be collected for even more information on the history and lore of the Mass Effect universe, and lots of dialogue to be listened to from random NPCs and interacting with the different squad members Shepard gathers. As per usual, getting to know the squad members was one of my favorite parts of the game. I instantly realized my favorite characters were Garrus the Turian, Turians remind me of the Elite from Halo, and Rex the Krogan. And the Krogan are a frog-type people. I kinda did the little kid thing of, no girls allowed in my clubhouse, only it was, human stinky, we team aliens. If I could have made Shepard an alien, I would have definitely done so. Still would have made him ugly for the stream though, because I get a kick out of everyone's reaction. You're just all encouraging bad behavior. Much like in Knights of the Old Republic, there is a morality system, but rather than just labeling choices light side or dark side, in Mass Effect it's Paragon for selfless, virtuous choices, and Renegade for intimidating, violent choices. You'll unlock unique Paragon/Renegade dialogue options if you make enough choices to get enough Renegade/Paragon points. I draw the comparison with light side/dark side choices in KOTOR, however the system doesn't really equate all that well. For one, in KOTOR it's a sliding bar, while in Mass Effect there are 2 different bars which slowly fill up. So you can track your choices over the whole game easier than simply, I was a good guy until I burnt down the House of Orphans and turned an old lady upside down and shook the credits out of her pockets. Now I am Darth Satan. In Mass Effect, you still have all your Paragon points for your Saint Atratzu Lee deeds, you just get some Renegade points for your recent uncouth actions.
Say goodnight, Manuel.
You cannot silence the truth. My voice must be heard.
Oh my god! What did you do?
Also in KOTOR, your character's appearance changes as you get more light side or dark side alignment. Your alignment also affects the required force points to use light or dark powers, but in Mass Effect you're not getting any of those. You're really only getting special dialogue options. Or so I thought. After doing a bit of search online, it looks like in Mass Effect 2, Shepard's face will change based on these choices, but in Mass Effect 1 it doesn't. And there are some more subtle storytelling notes regarding your morality choices. I also noticed as you get higher ranks in Paragon and Renegade, you get percentage bonuses to stuff like first aid cooldowns and weapon power cooldowns, etc. In my first playthrough, I walked the line between Paragon and Renegade, which meant I almost never had enough of either Renegade or Paragon points to make any of the special dialogue choices. Usually these special dialogue options don't make that much of an overall change for the quest or story, maybe squeeze some extra money or items out of somebody. But unfortunately, towards the end of the game, I found myself in a situation with my buddy Rex where I couldn't talk him down from a critical point in the story. And then Ashley, well, let's just say we're not friends anymore. So my first game's story was put on the bad timeline, against my will. Unless I'd loaded a save from 2 hours back, I couldn't change anything. Here's the moral of the story. Take extra time to get to know your party members, and do the extra quests, or maybe be more consistent being Paragon or Renegade. And lastly, save game before you land on the planet, not after. By the way, when making dialogue choices, they're usually in the same location. Top right will be Paragon, bottom right will be Renegade, middle right is neutral, left side will typically relate to getting more information.
Chance to get even. She knows the area, Commander, and we could use the extra firepower.
Just don't forget who's in charge.
Understood, Commander. You give the orders and I'll follow them.
Move out.
The 2 main gameplay modes in Mass Effect are fighting in third person and having dialogue conversations with characters. I didn't find the combat in Mass Effect 1 very compelling. At first I was delighted with real-time combat when I was expecting KOTOR turn-based combat. However, I quickly lost interest in the cover-based third-person shooting and tried to beat the sections as quickly and with as much cheese as possible. The relation between character level, gear, and skills in regards to doing damage to enemies really didn't interest me. I just auto-leveled up and equipped whatever new gear I found. The principle of, I see green numbers, I equip it, prevailed. To be fair, I don't know that I'd really care to micromanage gear and weapons on KOTOR either, but with KOTOR you have numbers which showed up during combat, and you could tell the new weapon you equipped was letting you beat up that Cath Hound better because bigger attack numbers and faster health bar depletion. KOTOR's combat just feels more like a familiar gear-based RPG, while playing through Mass Effect the combat felt more like a third-person shooter and less like an RPG. I just wanted to point the crosshairs at their head and get critical damage. And before you get the wrong idea, let me say KOTOR is pretty clunky in its own rights. But Mass Effect just played a bit old. The combat hasn't aged that well. It's workable. You could get into min-maxing a build, and I have no doubt there are. I've seen challenge videos for this game. Can you beat Mass Effect without shooting? Can you beat Mass Effect with no friends? Can I beat Mass Effect by playing it only with my Guitar Hero controller? All of which would have been more popular video titles than my review titles. When you're not running around ducking behind cover and shooting the bad guys, you'll be running around talking to people instead. Flying from planetary system to planetary system. There's a whole set of solar systems you can visit and examine, which at first overwhelmed me, but you're not able to actually land on every planet in a system. Sometimes you'll also need to navigate the planet by driving around in the all-terrain vehicle called the Mako. Sometimes you'll be unlucky enough to need to fight in the Mako too. My preferred method of combat was to try to snipe people from as far as possible and dodge the incoming blaster bolts before I take too much damage and then need to redo the whole section. I'm not bitter, you're bitter. So now that I think of it, maybe I should say my preferred method of combat became hit the quick save button first. That goes for most combat in the game. Mass Effect wasn't an easy game to play through by any stretch. There's a lot of nuance and intricacy you can dig into if you want to. However, I wanted to play this game to learn about the story and see the game which started the saga off with a bang. It's important to remember this game released in 2007. Some other big game titles that were released in 2007 were Assassin's Creed, Halo 3, God of War 2, Portal 1, and The Witcher. And here we are at the conclusion. And I ask you again, what would motivate someone to go back to play Mass Effect 1? My first thought always goes to nostalgia. God knows I love some awful unplayable games I grew up with, or require such an insane learning curve, and who would take the time to learn it? My favorite examples would be the X-Wing / TIE Fighter game series. Who's going to have that kind of hardware anymore? Do kids even buy joysticks? Who's going to take the time to learn how to play those games unless they've already played them growing up? Again, if you grew up playing Mass Effect, I don't think you need me to validate your opinion that the game you already love is good. But if you do need that, kindly accept head pats. Pat pat. The next reason I thought about was one of the main reasons I wanted to play Mass Effect 1. World building and lore. If I had a choice, I would always prefer to start a story at the beginning, not jump in at the final episode. But sadly with video games, I tend to join the story at random times and play catch-up as I backtrack to get the whole story. Playing Mass Effect 1 to get the lore for the sequel games seems like a very good reason to me. And I'm here for the story, I got the story. And the combat was just the transportation between the story sections where I made decisions which shaped the universe. Speaking of making decisions, another reason someone might want to go back to play Mass Effect 1 is because some of the decisions you make will be carried forward into Mass Effect 2 if you decide to import the save file. I can't comment on any of that just yet, because I haven't played Mass Effect 2 yet, but stay tuned, my father-in-law bought me Mass Effect Legendary Edition, so you know we'll be back to talk about Mass Effect 2 and 3 someday. On the whole, Mass Effect was a good experience. My first playthrough took me roughly 20 hours. Had I owned Mass Effect instead of Knights of the Old Republic, I would have played this game religiously and learned every little nook and cranny. Coming back to this game as a newcomer to the series, I'd recommend Mass Effect for anyone who wants to play a classic title, for nostalgia's sake, or for the story and lore of Mass Effect. But that's enough for this video. You know the drill of all the stuff we say and do at the end of videos. My name is Atratzu. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next review.
I was just thinking how much you remind me of Santa Claus.
Look, I didn't pick the name. One of the instructors in flight school used to bug me about never smiling. She started calling me Joker, and it stuck.
Why didn't you ever smile?
Hey, I worked my ass off in flight school, Commander. The world's not gonna hand you anything if you go around grinning like an idiot. By the end of the year, I was the best pilot in the academy, even better than the instructors, and everybody knew it. They'd all got their asses kicked by the sickly kid with the creaky little legs. One guess who was smiling at graduation?
I have to go.
All right, see ya.